Well, hello, pilgrims. Welcome to this week's episode.
Hello.
Fraser's always creeping in at the back.
It's always awkward
Hello.
to know when to come in.
It is, yeah. I'm quite glad to do the introduction. Well, to do the hello, you're doing the introduction today.
I am. So here's our little, monologue of what we're going to be talking about today. Failing is a part of life. If you've never failed, then you've probably never tried something new. Failure can be difficult and painful to take, but maybe there are some positives in it that can help us move forward. No one ever starts as an expert at something. We must all learn our craft, whatever that might be. Creating in an environment that accepts failure is a brave thing to do. Creating an environment that accepts failure is a brave thing to do.
You failed.
And it's the first step in the direction of becoming whatever it is that you are attempting to become. Whether that's a better person or you take up a new hobby. So that's our
Your true
subject
self.
for today. Yes.
Yeah, we thought this would lead on quite nicely from last week's episode, which was about victim culture, the kind of victim mindset and mentality, and just to kind of make the point that in order to achieve something and to even get to the stage where you could fail or succeed, you need to deal with the negative stuff that have happened to you so that you can then invest and learn what you're passionate about.
Yeah, so if you haven't listened to that podcast yet, you might want to listen to it first because, we're hoping that they lead on well together and that they're two sides of the same coin almost.
Yeah, totally. And we also want to get quite personal in this podcast because obviously we do a podcast, and if you're listening to this, duh, but this pilgrimage is not just a podcast, although at the moment that's mostly what we put out, but we also do a bit of videography and also music. We've actually got quite a few songs in the pipeline, and this whole process of working on the songs has been it's been great, but it's been quite difficult.
Yeah, and even this pilgrimage in terms of what it was from a concept to when it actually became what it is becoming now, it was quite a process of, I'd say, 2 years probably.
It was 2 years,
of trying to find out what it would be, how we would do it. Obviously, we fit it around our normal lives, so what does that look like? And then we've kind of started the podcast, but, we had obviously never done a podcast before, so we had to learn how to do a podcast and, doing the video stuff. I've basically learned video stuff in the last, year and a half. Lockdown's been really good because I've been communicating with everyone in the youth group that I work for, through that. So that's been good. But, learning loads of things like that. And then music has been a process for both of us, whether it's me learning more production skills, but then for you, it's a lot more personal because it's the singing side of it and your voice. And I don't know if you maybe want to go into that a little bit, what that process has been like.
Yeah, definitely. But also I was going to say even with this pilgrimage coming to the point where we launched it, I do believe it was the right time, if you want to say that, to launch it. But could we have done it before, and were we not doing it because we were scared of failing, or we felt like we didn't have the tools we needed? And that's quite an interesting thought to have, I think, for us, to kind of reflect and look back.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't do things because of failure, which might not even happen anyway. So so with songs, Fraser's an amazing songwriter, and songwriting is something that I struggle with personally, because, just being straight honest, because I'm really scared to fail, and because I think that every line I've ever written is really cheesy, or it doesn't work, or it's too standard, and so I've never really dug deep into that field. But Fraser is just brilliant. He's so good with melody. He's a brilliant musician as well, and he has amazing lyrics. And I think you're just very talented at almost poetically bringing the stuff that you go through and we go through in life, and things you're processing and thinking about, in song. And then we come to the point when we've got the whole songs recorded, pretty much produced, and we have to lay the vocals. And I wish I could say I like doing this, but I really don't. I find it really hard. I really struggle because I think we're all very self-critical, like we're all very aware of our flaws and stuff, and people might not always hear them, but we definitely hear them as singers or whatever you do. You'll always see your flaws more than anyone else, I think. But I've also had to come to the realization of, yeah, I can sing, but I don't have the best voice, whatever that means. I can't do like massive runs and I don't know, I'm not confident in it. And it often kind of breaks and it's a bit croaky and all of this. And it's just really hard because with songs, like it's so personal. And also when you sing, you feel just so many emotions and you really want the song to carry that because, all of us who enjoy music, we enjoy it because it's something that really speaks to the very deep parts of who we are, that there's not much else that really touches us there. And I'm really conscious of that when I'm trying to sing, and it's just so hard to listen back to yourself and feel like this is rubbish. And sometimes it genuinely is. Sometimes I'm maybe being too harsh on myself, but I don't know what you guys feel like when you do something and you feel like you can't do it perfectly. I just go down in a spiral. Like I just spiral down. I get so negative and self-critical, and you often have to kind of pick me back up, don't you? How do you find that? It must be quite frustrating.
Sometimes it is, but for me, the most frustrating bit isn't the fact that I have to do that. It's more the fact that I can see the potential that you have as a singer, and I want you to reach that. But I know from experience, because I've picked up a few things, like I said, whether it's videography or production or things like that, even songwriting itself, if I go back a few years. And I know the process that it went through. If I was to show people my first song, I still remember it now. It was like this punk song called Meant to Be, and it was just awful. And I remember I wrote it when I was living in America, and I was into like punk rock, and it's just awful.
Punk rock is good though.
I think
It
that
brings
ship
back
sailed for me.
It brings back memories.
Yeah, we were just listening to punk rock
We
before
were.
this while we were setting up, which is
Lion
quite funny.
K.
Yeah, so I think that for me, it's knowing that there is going to be a process, and that can be an enjoyable thing. Although there are, of course, times when you're frustrated and you think, "Oh, I wish I could just do that," but it's about learning to go through that process to get to the point where you want to
Yeah,
be, and
you're
to
so
celebrate
right.
the small victories. But I do
Learning the
think,
process is so hard. Well, maybe it's not hard, but it's so key.
yeah, and I think that it's about taking the little steps forward, and you'll look back in a year and think, oh wow, I've come really far, and actually I know my voice, if it is singing, if that's the example that we're looking at. I've taken so many steps further in that year that I can now look back and say, wow, I've actually really improved, and I do know
Yeah.
my voice in a new way, and look at these songs that I've done.
And here again, it's the steps that kind of stands out to me.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
when you're stuck in failure, like when you're not pleased with yourself, and maybe you do the same thing as me, where you kind of spiral down, you're not taking any steps. You're just so stagnant,
yeah,
and you have to push past the initial fear and dislike and all of that to improve. And you need to accept that sometimes it's going to be really bad. But it's almost like I'm not saying like it's pride, but it's almost like you're not letting yourself not be as good as you would let someone else. Like, to say your friend was a singer and they needed some encouragement and they weren't singing as
yeah.
well.
You would encourage
Yeah, you
them and
totally
help
be
them.
encouraging
Yeah,
and be like, no, you can do this. That was good. That was nice. That wasn't as good. Let's work on it together with yourself. You're like so self-destructive when you get stuck in that. And so I think it's really key what you said with the steps. And I recognize that that's something I need to do. And I've kind of started over the past couple of weeks, just trying to do daily exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, bless you. Honestly, I am so self-conscious when I do them because I think Fraser's downstairs and I'm up in the little music room going like, ba 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 ba. Do like these stupid exercises. I have this massive straw that I have to blow in with water and make some bubbles, and it's supposed to like relax your larynx or whatever. And I just think, oh my word, like but basically you can't be proud when you're going through the process. You have to accept it's not going to be as
Yeah.
good.
And I think going back to what you were saying at the beginning there, it goes back to what we spoke about last week with the victim mindset. And you can either choose to have a victim mindset of I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be good enough, so I'm just not going to bother.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to look past that and say, no, actually, this is something that I really feel is the right thing to do. I'm passionate about it and I'm going to push through and make myself better at it. I think there is something to be said, and if we stay on the analogy of singing, I can help kind of play this out a little bit. But there's something to be said of knowing when to say, actually, this isn't me, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Right.
for me, if I could do one thing in life or have one gift, I think it would be to sing, because I would love to be able to sing my own songs, but I've never been good enough to do that. And I haven't done like training of my voice like what you're doing now, but I just personally know I'm maybe I'll sing one song here or there, but you can hear it in my voice that I don't have a strong voice. I don't have that foundation to be a singer, and I can sing, like I said, a song here or there and stuff like that, and I can sing a song to show someone the song and that kind of thing, but I know that it's not worth me putting in the time, the effort, the emotion to learn to sing, because I'll never be at that point of someone else who, like you, who already has a base of that. So I think you do need to know when to say, actually, I can't be as good a singer as I would want to be, but maybe I can be a really good songwriter, or maybe I can be a really good video producer, maybe I can be a really good whatever it is that you want to be good at. And we going back a few years, when I went to a Christian college, the whole culture in the Christian world at that time was I want to be a worship leader. Everyone wanted to be a worship leader, singing worship songs and stuff. And I guess you could say that society has been like that with shows like The X Factor, Britain's Got Talent. I want to do that. I want to be a singer. But a lot of the time, that might not be what someone's called to. But because it's the thing, everyone wants to do
Right.
it. And that's
Totally.
that is how Britain's Got Talent and X Factor had their success, where it was like, the funny audition of some really arrogant person goes on the show and says, yeah, I'm really good at this. And then they do it and they're absolutely terrible. And,
Yeah.
the show, it's interesting to note how, I've forgotten who was saying this, but someone was talking to me about this the other day. They've totally changed tact on Britain's Got Talent, going from like laughing at people basically who are rubbish to now they're not like that at all, and the judges are a lot kinder and the feedback and stuff, because society's kind of shifted from that a little bit,
Yeah, it's
which
true.
is interesting. And I think that that's a good thing, and we need to learn when actually we're never going to be good at something, so you have to balance.
And it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it.
Yeah,
It just
exactly, you
means
can
like,
do it and enjoy it, yeah, no
yeah,
problem, and do it as a
but like
hobby.
take the
Yeah.
pressure off of you of trying to become that thing that you just won't.
Yeah, and comparison.
Oh,
Comparison's a big
a
one with
killer.
this. Yeah, it
It's a
is.
killer. But
Yeah.
that's a really good point. What you were saying with realizing that this is just not for you. I think you also have to realize when it is the thing for you that you have to realize that you're not another person. So
Yeah.
again, to go on with the analogy of singing, just realize that you've got your own voice and you might not be, and we all have unique voices, fair enough, but even in the technique that you have, you might not be able to do things that other people do. Doesn't mean you're less good or whatever.
Yeah.
It just means you have a different style, a
Yeah.
different capacity, a different sound. Like even for me, I know I've got quite a low voice, and you can probably tell as we record these podcasts, like I'm not a girl with a super high voice. And I used to sing in a choir, and I was like an alto, and I know that I have limits, and I'm just getting to grips now with where my voice fits in the realm of music. And it's quite an enjoyable thing to realize that, to take away the thing of I need to sound like Adele or whatever, and just realizing this thing is for me, but it doesn't have to look like someone else that I admire.
Yeah, and you can lean into your strengths. And,
Right.
you know, there is arguments where people say, don't try and get good at something that you're not that good at. Within something, go and within that thing, whether it is singing, go and get really good at that. I think it was someone in golf that told me it once. If you're not good at driving, just get a solid shot and hit it straight. But if you're really good at chipping it onto the green, get really good at that. Practice that over and over. Get even better at that, because you already have potential to
So
do that.
focus on one thing, one area.
Yeah, and try and get better at that. Obviously, you need to be, if you're going to be a professional golf player, you need to be able to, you know, drive the ball, and you need to be okay at certain things.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's where things like, you know, golf isn't a team sport, whereas in another sport like basketball or whatever, you can use the team around you. So you can be really good at 3-pointers, but you might be awful at rebounds or whatever it might be. And so you've got some huge guy who can do all of those things for you that you can't do. And I think that you can do that, you know, within yourself. You can outsource your weaknesses to someone else. So if you're not very good at something, get someone else to do it. But do what you're really good at.
Just laughing because you sneakily just went on to the subject of sport.
Well, why not? I didn't talk about football, which you were probably waiting for.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
As we're speaking, Chelsea are hopefully qualifying for the Champions League. So hopefully, I'm going to regret if they don't.
Yeah,
but
it
we'll
would
see.
be quite funny if it didn't happen.
But yeah, I think that's a really important bit of advice for people, just to kind of recap, is don't beat yourself up, and remember you have to start from somewhere.
Yeah, and putting the work in, which is something that it's almost hard to hear. I've found it hard to hear,
Yeah.
because it just killed my victim mindset that I had with singing of I'll never get there. And it's almost like we say that because we need encouragement and support, but like, you're really good with me, you know when to comfort me, and you know when to tell me like, no, like, stop doing this and get back up. And it's definitely what we need sometimes, definitely.
Yeah.
And one of the points that I think is important to make as well is that there's a difference between perfectionism and just being excellent or passionate or really good at something. Because, like, to me, I cannot link any positive, I don't know, words or thoughts with perfectionism because of how much I struggle with it. But excellence is something that makes me, I don't know, it inspires me.
Yeah.
And it's like perfectionism is almost like it controls you. But with excellence, you control how far you go.
Yeah. And people don't want... Were you finished?
Yeah.
I thought I cut you off. People don't want a really polished, put together thing, I don't think. Like, if I watch a podcast, for example, I quite like it if there's, like, I don't know, the microphone stand falls over, which could definitely happen with the one that I'm using. It makes it part of the thing, you know, and you laugh.
Real.
And you know, in the day and age that we live in, and this finds its roots probably in postmodernism, maybe more of a positive thing, if there is anything positive about postmodernism, but that's probably another podcast. But we embrace the fact, we want that little bit of realness, real life. We don't want the really, like, sparkly, polished thing anymore. People don't want that. That style is very much moving out, and people want a bit of I don't know, connection and humanness and even imperfection. And we love Switchfoot, both of us, and we love John Foreman and everything that he's about as a person, and his songs are so beautiful. He's one of my inspirations as a songwriter.
Incredible. It is, this man.
Yeah, and he really does, and his voice is not the best at all in terms of ability, but I love the sound of it. He's got such a good
Yeah.
tone, and he actually leans into his imperfections, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. And then,
And it
another.
perfectly fits what he does, which is what's
Exactly, and
important.
no one else can really sing his songs like he does.
Mm.
And another one is Bob Dylan. He doesn't have the greatest voice, but his songs carry something. They
Right.
carry a weight of emotion, and he can convey things through his voice and his sound that someone else couldn't necessarily in the same
Yeah.
way. But then both of those guys, both of their songs, if they do get covered by an amazing singer, they take on another thing.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean that you don't like their version, which vocally might not be, at the same level.
Yeah.
Um,
And also, let's not get too literal. Like, I think, especially in music, when you talk about a voice, your voice goes beyond what it sounds like. I think the
mm,
poetry, the lyrics, the interpretation, all
mm,
of that plays a huge part in a
yeah.
song, And so for you, for example, with not really having the ability to sing as well as you'd like, your voice is still completely carried through the songs. And it's great
Mm,
that we can, share that together and almost
yeah.
we stand on each other's shoulders in terms of our weaknesses.
Mm,
Like maybe I can stand on your shoulders to sing the songs that you wish you could,
mm.
but then you stand on my shoulders for I don't even know what for. I was
To
just
help
thinking
you, maybe I can help
maybe
and
yeah.
support you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and it's about teamwork and doing things together. And I think when you have the conversation, like we're having this conversation mostly because we're still going through this. We're still in the
Totally.
process of recording these songs, and we're really excited to share them, but we have had a tough time, getting them ready.
Yeah.
But it's about having the conversation. When you bring it into the open and you don't take yourself too seriously or care too much about, oh, what are people going to think about us when we say this or that or the other, when you diffuse the situation, when
Mm.
you talk about it and you're honest about it and say, yeah, I do struggle with this, but this is the right thing to do to make myself better, or I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Um,
That's important to recognize that you're moving.
yeah, definitely. And going on the back of that with the whole thing of teamwork and creating an atmosphere that actually embraces failure. There's a book I'll show for the people watching on the video. It's called Creativity Inc. And I would highly, highly recommend it. It's the story of Pixar. It's written by a guy called Ed Catmull. And Pixar is obviously an animation studio that were brought by Disney, and Steve Jobs was actually involved in founding it. And yeah, it's just their story, and I love, I love, I love this book and the way this guy writes, but I
Mm.
also love the way that they set up their organization.
Yeah. It's
Um,
genius.
yeah, and they just lean into embracing people and their own ideas and thoughts. They'll be in a meeting about a movie that they're making. And for those of you that don't know Pixar, they made films like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, I think was Pixar, A
Yeah.
Bug's Life, loads of like very well known animated films.
Yeah.
But they'll be going nowhere with a film, and so what they'll do is they'll bring in a cleaner who's walking past and say, this is the storyline. What are we missing? And then they'll actually do what they say, and they value
Mm.
everyone in the organisation. Everyone has an equal say in things, and I think that's great. But there's a chapter called Fear and Failure, and I'm just going to read a little excerpt from it, just to kind of help frame some of this stuff, because I think this guy says it really well. And obviously, this is talking about in an organization and creating a culture of something within a company. But I think we can apply it to personal
Yeah.
things, and like us as like a family, if you like, or a couple that are doing something together creative, that we can take things from this. So in a fear-based, failure adverse culture, people will consciously or unconsciously avoid risk. They will seek instead to repeat something safe that's been good enough in the past. Their work will be derivative, not innovative. But if you can foster a positive understanding of failure, the opposite will happen. How then do you make failure into something people can face without fear? part of the answer is simple. If we as leaders can talk about our mistakes and our part in them, we make it safe for others. You don't run from it or pretend it doesn't exist. That's why I make a point of being open about our meltdowns inside Pixar, because I believe they teach us something important. Being open about problems is the first step towards learning from them. My goal is not to drive fear out completely, because fear is inevitable in high stakes situations. What I want to do is loosen its grip on us. While we don't want too many failures, we must think of the cost of failure as an investment in the future just a little bit more. If you create a fearless culture, or as fearless as human nature will allow, people will be much less hesitant to explore new areas, identifying uncharted pathways and charging down them. They will also begin to see the upside of decisiveness. The time they've saved by not gnashing their teeth about whether they're on the right course comes in handy when they hit a dead end and need to reboot. So,
So good.
yeah, obviously there's a lot in there as well, but I think one of the things that's really important with that is that fear isn't necessarily, failure isn't necessarily a bad thing, and fear is not necessarily a good thing.
But he
And
also says he doesn't completely remove it.
yeah, and I think that is something that we need to keep in the back of our mind, going back to what I said of like sometimes we need to realise actually this isn't for me. And I wouldn't
Keeps you
use the
humble,
word
doesn't it?
fear, yeah, but it's a consciousness and awareness of, okay, maybe I'm not the best at this and I need to be aware of that. So I think that's really important. And where he says, where are we? Obviously, he talks about my goal is not to drive out fear completely. And those of you that are Christians will think of a Bible verse immediately with that, where it says perfect love drives out all fear. And I think the process, for example, that you've been going through with this singing and trying to really push through and sing these songs that we have written and are writing, um, the answer to drive out that fear of failure is love. And that's the thing that ultimately I will try and show you. And so, you know, if you see these podcasts, like we said last week's and this one, as two sides of the same coin. Last week might have been a bit of a, come on, everyone that's listening to this, you can do better, there's more, and kind of pushing and encouraging people in a, not a negative way at all, but like a kind of pushing way. And this one is saying, it's okay to fail. It's okay to get things wrong. I'm here for you. I care about you.
Yeah.
And you know
And it's part of all of our lives.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
alone in
Yeah,
this. Like,
exactly. And you know that's one of the reasons we're doing this, I guess, is to help people that might be watching this to say, you know, go on, go and do it. We live in a world where everything's on Instagram, and you see someone who's practiced for hours, and you think, oh, I can't do that, and you just kind of give up. But it's like, well, put your phone down and go and practice
yeah,
then, and
you haven't seen the journey that led them to that point.
exactly, and don't be a victim about it. Going back to last week,
Yeah.
you can do it. You have the ability. Just go and put the hours in. And then, you know, what he says as a leader about creating a culture where it's like, well, no, we have got things wrong. I've got things wrong as a leader. You can do the same.
Yeah.
There's a culture of honesty in this place, what he's describing, and there's a culture of, if you get things wrong, we'll pick up and try again, and it's okay to get things wrong. And actually goes on to say, actually, it's essential, because when you fail together, as a group of people or as a team, a bond is formed between you when you go through that.
It's true.
And I think that's really important
It's
as well.
so true. And I was also just thinking, going back 2 weeks ago when we released an episode on Jordan Peterson, he's got a chapter in his book 12 Rules for Life where he talks about not comparing yourself to someone else, but to who you were yesterday. And personally, I found that so helpful. Such a simple statement, but I think it really just changes your life when you realize how much that impacts you.
Yeah.
If you just recognize how you've evolved, even if it's like a tiny thing each day.
Yeah.
Like imagine at the end of 365 days, if a tiny thing changes every day, you're going to be much further than where you were in the first place.
Yeah.
So
there's a quote by Desmond Tutu that goes well with that, where he says, basically do your bit of good where you are, because it's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's really important. It's like, do your little bit of good, do your little bit of practice, do your little bit of whatever it is, and that is what will, you know, make a big difference in your life, and ultimately, obviously, the lives of everyone around us.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a Tolkien quote
There we go.
where he talks about it's the little deeds, it's the deeds of normal folks that keeps the darkness at bay. And I mean, maybe that's going a bit too deep, but it is dark. That place of perfectionism is dark, and also the evil that can happen in the world is obviously dark. And I think if we all strive to be a better person, not in a way of, oh, you know, YOLO, be whoever you want to be, but more like be truly who you are and who you were created to be, and find the things that you excel at, and invest in that. That keeps the darkness at bay. And we just want to remind everyone that's listening or watching, like, we might not know you, but we truly believe in you as an individual, because we believe in an intrinsic value for every single person that's ever been born on this planet. And so just to kind of wrap this up, unless you want to add something.
No, the camera there's just stopped recording, so the end of this is going to be on that camera,
GoPro
which
only.
happens every time.
Embrace the fisheye.
We're embracing the failure and telling you that is why that shot is not there anymore.
Yeah. So basically, everything we wanted to say this week is failure is part of life. You won't escape from it unless you literally do nothing.
Yeah.
So get out there, fail, and get back up and find what you're good at, and enjoy the process, even if it's hard. And most importantly, I think, give yourself some slack. Don't give in to perfectionism, and also don't give in to comparison. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. This is a wrap. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.